Hello jeweler, and welcome to a video that I'm ecstatic to get into with you. I absolutely love talking about critical thinking, and it's just a topic, ever since I really got into it, that has been a blast to me. What's funny is that growing up, I thought I knew what critical thinking meant. When I was a little kid, our teachers had this metaphor for making us think hard about something. They would all tell us to put our thinking caps on. And they'd pretend to, put a hat on their heads and say, put on your thinking cap. And in my mind, that was critical thinking. I just believed that thinking critically meant thinking really hard about something. What I realized, though, was that I was completely wrong. So unlike a lot of people, I've always loved public speaking. If those opportunities arose, I would take it. I'd get in front of people and I'd have a blast entertaining people. I've done speeches, preached at churches. I love being on video. Any chance I can get to entertain a large group of people, I'm into it. And I even was able to give a public speech completely in German when I lived in Berlin, which is a pretty fun goal to reach. And so for that reason, when I was in high school, I took a public speech and debate class. So in that class, we had to create speeches and give them to classmates, but we also had to argue as well. We didn't learn to formally debate, but we did have the chance to debate a little bit. And what I found out was that while I loved public speaking, when it came to debating, even though I had strong opinions about certain topics, I had no idea whatsoever how to articulate them. Like in high school, I had to debate about whether eating meat was right or not. And so I had to take the position that it wasn't. And so someone's like, hey, so is eating meat right? And I said, no, it's not because XYZ. And they'd say, well, I think it is because XYZ. And then the conversation would end and we wouldn't know what to do about it. And then I'd get on the news and there would be these two people debating about something and they both would sound like great arguments. And I'd be so confused afterwards because I wasn't sure who was right and who was wrong. And there would be people around me who would have these opinions that they were all about, and they'd tell everyone about their opinions all the time, whether in real life or on social media. And even though I didn't agree, I just had no idea what to say. It was like my mind just stopped working. I knew deep down that what I thought was true, but I couldn't create or articulate any thoughts to save my life. And I love to read, especially older philosophy books. And I was so fascinated by the way they wrote because everything seemed to be so complex, but they made it make sense at the same time. I loved reading, and I still do to this day read a ton, but now with different eyes. My senior year of college, some years later, I had some extra credits I could do anything I wanted with, and I decided to take a course called Persuasion and Debate. That class did more to open up my eyes and my mind to mental clarity than probably any book I've ever read since. I'm not going to teach you how to run a debate. For most people, just the thought of debate makes them sweat. They hate conflict, they want nothing to do with it, and that's totally fine. But those very same people seem to always have very strong opinions, though they don't know how to express or articulate them correctly. Or they might disagree with a certain position, but they don't know what they don't agree with. They simply know there's something that feels wrong going on here. Now, why is this module on critical thinking in a course about jewelry marketing? You're here to make money. You're here to create beautiful pieces of jewelry and retire in 5 years and live in a beach house. That's awesome. But when we talk about cultivating a powerful mind, what I find so often is that people have no idea how to properly articulate a thought. That might sound harsh, but once we're done with this module, you're going to see the world with new eyes and hear the world with new ears. It's like all the noise around you is suddenly going to be clear, and you'll be able to make informed decisions about what step to take next. I so often talk to jewelers and try to figure out where they're coming from so that I can help them. But so few jewelers that I talk to can clearly articulate where they are or what they want. Because of this, it's impossible to determine how to measure success with them. They ask, so how do I get more followers on Instagram? And I ask, well, what are your end goals for your business? And they say, I want to take over the business from my dad, but there's a store in the same shopping plaza as us, and we sell the same thing as they do, and we don't know how we're any better than they are, and we're not even sure if we should be trying to get more customers because we don't really want more work, because I don't like to be busy, and I don't think that we make anything better than the jeweler does down the street, and on and on and on. And it's so common for people to have all these jumbled up thoughts with no clear direction. And it's no wonder they can't make any progress in their business. I want you to be able to have a clear, quiet, sharp mind. And most people have never been they've never really been taught how to articulate a thought or how to think critically. Without the ability to think critically, you lack the ability to understand whether an argument is sound or not. And this is important because if an argument isn't sound and you make a decision based off of that unsound argument, you're likely making a decision that isn't actually in your best interest. However, if you can identify which arguments or statements are sound, you'll have the ability to confidently make decisions about your business, your life, your money, everything. Moreover, you'll be able to clearly articulate exactly what you think in a way that is easy to understand. What I'm going to touch on in this module is incredibly dangerous. We live in a world that is full of millions of unsound claims and arguments with no backing or evidence, and people have no idea which way to turn. But when you can create a sound argument, you can win hearts and minds and change the world. And you'll be able to beat your spouse in an argument. But that's not what this is all about. You know, after taking that class in college, taking part in multiple debates, and learning to actually think critically, I felt like my mind has been opened. The sense of confidence that you get when you can think critically is truly unique. You know that no matter what comes at you, you'll be able to make some sense of it, make a decision, and move on. Jordan Peterson said, "The best way to teach people critical thinking is to teach them to write, because there's no difference between that and thinking." And one of the things that just blows me away about universities is that no one ever tells students why they should write something. Well, why are you writing? Well, I need a grade. It's like, no, you need to learn to think, because thinking makes you act effectively in the world. Thinking makes you win the battles you undertake, and those could be battles for good things. If you can think and speak and write, you are absolutely deadly. Nothing can get in your way. So that's why you learn to write. And if you can formulate your arguments coherently and make a presentation, if you can speak to people, if you can lay out a proposal, God, people give you money, they give you opportunities, you have influence. Teach people to be articulate, because that's the most dangerous thing you can possibly be. And that's motivating. If people know that it's like, you know, here's your sword, here's your M16, here's your bulletproof vest, learn how to use them. That's what thinking means. But before we get into critical thinking, we need to talk about the all things to all men principle. A verse that I heard growing up was, "To the weak I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some." Now, what does that mean, and why is it pertinent to what we're learning here? We're going to just touch on some brief marketing talk here, and I hope you don't mind. What this verse is talking about is sharing the gospel. The whole idea is that the more like somebody you are, the more you'll be able to speak their language and interact with them so that you can present them with a message that makes sense to them. That makes sense, right? And the same is true in every aspect of life. If one person means one thing and another person says the same thing but means something different, they can't have a meaningful conversation. And this is so easy to demonstrate. So when it comes to getting ready to go out, my wife and I will say the exact same thing, but mean something completely different. So if I say, "I have nothing to wear," what do I mean? I mean that I literally have nothing clean that I can put on. However, if my wife says, "I have nothing to wear," what does she mean? She means that she doesn't like the clothes that she has to choose from. Or take a more extreme example. When I was living in Germany, I became fluent in German so that I could talk with the locals. By learning to speak their language, everything about my life became exponentially easier. And many times, I was told that normally Americans don't try to learn German. They just expect everyone to speak English. And one of the most embarrassing things for me was, as an American, was watching another American at a sausage stand yelling slowly at a poor German man or woman who doesn't understand them in Berlin, Germany. Some people truly don't understand the need to change yourself to be able to understand those around you, to be able to speak their language, both literally and figuratively. The all things to all men principle is this: people have different worldviews. In order to speak to them, we need a common language. And so if we want to serve them, it's our job to adapt, not theirs. One of the first principles of marketing is getting to know your ideal customer, your target niche. If you have a client in mind that you would love to sell to, but you're not willing to speak their language, then you're just like the loud, obnoxious American yelling about a sausage. When you act that way and make others adapt to you rather than you to them, you've lost the ability to connect with them. Many jewelers are asking about TikTok and whether they should get on TikTok, but the reality is most jewelers don't understand the landscape or the point of TikTok. If they were to get on that platform, they would be speaking a different language than everyone else, and no one would pay any attention to them. So, if we want to be all things to all men, if we want to have the best possible chance of speaking directly to someone's heart, we need to first understand their worldview. Now, what do I mean by people have different worldviews? Do you remember the elephant from the first mindset video? Everyone approaches life differently. Everyone has an equally valid explanation of what they're experiencing. A worldview is the way a person perceives the world around them, as well as the stories they tell themselves about what they perceive. This has to do with language, with culture, with beliefs, about money, about God, about love, about government, about family, all those things. Some cultures are honor-shame cultures, like the Syrian culture. Some are guilt and innocence cultures, such as the United States. And some are fear-based cultures, such as many tribal or indigenous cultures. What this means is that if you take a person from each of these cultures and say, is eating meat right or wrong, it is going to be heard differently by each person. People do not think the same. Others don't think the same way that you do. Another example that I didn't even know existed, which has always been fun to bring up, to my American friends at least, is this question. How many continents are there? Every single person I ask this question to is dumbfounded that I should even need to ask this question. They say, everyone agrees on this, or what are you talking about? Of course, everyone knows the answer. But then you hear their answers. So whether you know this or not, depending on where you live, there could be 5 continents, there could be 7, there could be 6. Some cultures might even teach 4. If you don't believe me, find someone who grew up in another country and ask them this question and see what they say. If they came from the other side of the world, then chances are that they will say something that you don't agree with. By being humble and open to learning about those that you're serving and recognizing that you might think differently than your clients, you will be 100 times more likely to see your business succeed because you'll be able to articulate your thoughts to them in a clear manner in which they can understand what you're saying to them. And when it comes to articulating thoughts, like I said, most people have never been taught how to do this properly. You know, one thing that blew my mind was learning that there's actually a formula for creating a coherent argument. If you've ever been a debater or possibly have worked in a law practice, then you already know this, but for everyone else, it's not so clear. Most people just go through life just as I did, afraid that they won't be able to defend their beliefs and amazed at others who can articulate clear, coherent arguments. Most are tossed to one side and then to the other side by news and social media, and they're constantly in fear about everything they hear because they don't know who to trust or what to believe. But there's a formula to critical thinking, and I'm going to teach it to you. At this point, I'd like to suggest a short story that you can easily find anywhere on the internet called Love is a Fallacy. Just type in Love is a Fallacy and read through that short story when you have the chance to do so. It's short, entertaining, and is a fantastic illustration of something called logical fallacies, which we will touch on briefly here. So for the sake of an example, I'm going to use the engagement rings are a scam argument. Actually, once while we ran an ad for my family's store promoting engagement rings, someone posted a link to a video in the comments section called "Engagement Rings Are a Scam." So feel free to go and check it out. It's by a guy named Adam. Now, to most people, that video was very convincing. They think, wow, this is so new, it's kicking it to the man. And especially to guys who don't feel like spending money on their girlfriends or don't believe in marriage, it was very convincing. However, as you learn to think critically, poorly crafted stuff like that will be so easy to pick apart that you can actually use it to benefit your store or business. In fact, if you'd like to work on that together, I'd love to help you make that campaign. But the first part of critical thinking, as we've already discussed, is having a common agreed upon language. So if you watch the video, when Adam says engagement rings and you say engagement rings, we need to both agree that the definition of an engagement ring is a ring to symbolize an engagement, and by engagement, we mean the intention for one person to marry another person in the manner that's been most common in the United States since its inception. Great. So can the ring be made of rubber? Sure, we never defined that. Can it have an alexandrite instead of a diamond? Yeah, whatever floats your boat. We never defined that. All we said was engagement rings are a scam. Or we didn't, but Adam did. So the first part of any debate is to define terms. If Adam never defines what he means by an engagement ring, then we're allowed to do whatever we want with it. Also, one of the most meaningful words in the phrase is the word scam. So what does Adam mean by scam? If he hasn't defined it, then normally we just go to the most agreed upon definition, and one that's found in a mutually agreed upon dictionary. So according to Oxford Dictionary, a scam is a dishonest scheme, a fraud. So if Adam is saying that the rings we use to represent betrothal in the typical United States way are a dishonest scheme or a fraud, well, that's going to be a very hard thing to defend, considering that a ring in and of itself can't be a scam or a scheme. It might be a part of a scheme, but it can't be a scheme in and of itself. It also can't be used as a fraud unless someone is deceiving someone into getting a ring that they hadn't chosen, which would really mean that the sale by a particular jeweler was a fraud, not the ring itself. Now, if you're like most people, this might seem just like a lot of semantics to get through, but the trouble is that without defining terms, we don't really understand what Adam is getting at. To say that a ring is a scam is categorically incorrect. It doesn't make sense. Therefore, I mean, in any real debate and to any critical thinker, this isn't even an argument. It's just a guy looking for views. And deceiving viewers into believing that a ring is inherently a fraud or a scheme is certainly closer to the definition of a scam than a ring ever could be. But let's say that Adam did define his terms and wasn't just out to get a bunch of views, but really wanted to help people. So what comes next? Next is the argument. So arguments can be broken down into 5 main parts. And so we have claim, reason, evidence, warrant, acknowledgement, and response. If each of these parts exists, then you have a sound argument. If one of the parts doesn't, then you have an unsound argument. It's as simple as that. So to make things easy for each part, there is a corresponding question so that you know whether or not it's been a part of your argument or not, okay? So number 1 is, what are you claiming? Then, what reasons do you have for believing your claim? Then, on what evidence do you base those reasons? Then, what commonly believed principle connects or makes your reasons relevant to your claims? And then, what are parts of the argument that you're leaving out intentionally, and why don't they matter? So we're going to go through this part by part. Don't worry, it is a lot to learn. I took an entire semester and practiced all this to get it down. So let's go through this part by part by using the claim, John should buy an engagement ring for Lisa. So what are you claiming? John should buy an engagement ring for Lisa. What reasons do you have for believing your claim? Well, John has expressed the desire to get engaged to Lisa, and because of how Lisa was raised, she sees an engagement ring as a legitimate sign of betrothal. Okay. On what evidence do you base those reasons? Well, I know that those reasons are true because I have a text message chain with John asking me when I knew that I was ready to get engaged, and he says he believes he's not ready. And Lisa has been saving a Pinterest board of different engagement rings, which she has shared with her sister as examples of rings that she would be happy to own. Okay. What commonly believed principle connects or makes your reasons relevant to your claims? Well, as they say, if you like it, you should put a ring on it. This is now a part of the culture, and whether we like it or not, we live in this culture, and while we can try and act countercultural, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. What are parts of your argument that you're leaving out intentionally? Yes, it's true, some people do not consider engagement rings the true sign of betrothal, but as we've discussed, Lisa does, and it is to her that John is getting engaged. Yes, there are arguments that engagement rings don't hold their monetary value, or that they were originally marketed for the De Beers Diamond Association. However, that doesn't matter. It's irrelevant in terms of whether or not Lisa wants one right now as a sign of betrothal, and whether or not John should honor that desire and honor her cultural understanding. That is a complete argument. Now, is it the perfect argument? No. No argument is going to be perfect or without the ability to push back, but it is a complete argument. And now that we have all 5 parts of the argument, we can have a discussion based on those parts. For example, someone could say, show me the text message chain, or I don't agree with, if you like it, you should put a ring on it. But then it would be their burden to show how that matters to whether or not it applies to John and Lisa. Also, by having that last part, acknowledgement and response, you give concession to the fact that yes, there are other points of view, but those points of view are irrelevant to the claim at hand. And there you have it. Those are the parts of an argument. We start by claiming something, then giving reasons, then giving evidence for those reasons, then give a commonly held belief within the culture that the audience will automatically agree with, and finally concede what you're not discussing and state why it doesn't matter to your argument. When you're able to understand the world in this way, and you're able to formulate a thought in this way, it is incredibly persuasive. Psychologically, this takes a person who knows nothing about a given topic and educates them to the point where they can make an informed decision on whether or not they agree with it. And if they don't, they naturally need to come up with a counter-argument in their own minds. Being able to defend your thoughts like this, your business, your marketing, your views, your brand, yourself, is a powerful thing. Let me make an argument right now. Most people do not know how to properly articulate a thought. Go on social media or watch the news and you will see claim after claim, but no evidence, no warrant, no concessions, no reasons, just claim after claim. It's very easy to see what most people think by seeing what they write on social media, and not just the general public, but professional communicators as well. Even today, I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw a headline, a claim, from a major newspaper, which then led to an article which did very little in the way of defending the headline. Rather, it seemed to assume that the readers would simply believe everything the writer said. In a world where we are so divided into different channels and social media is able to separate and silo each person into their own personal, unique echo chamber, it's no wonder that people never hear opposing beliefs and never feel the need to properly articulate their arguments. And while it is true that there are those out there who make beautiful cases for change, and there are individuals with a knack for conversing persuasively, they are outliers. I mean, even the reason that they come to our minds as good communicators is because they are unique and admirable. Most people are not outliers, therefore the truly good communicators don't count in what I'm stating. They are not most people. Bam. Just a little argument right there. Now you can interact with it. There's a full, complete thought that you can trace from beginning to end, and you can see all the parts in order. Once you learn to think in this way, things become much, much more clear. You will be, one of the biggest things is you will be disenchanted by news by social media and by most popular articles or beliefs, because you'll be able to see that most of what is happening today and is being thrown around by people is people throwing around claims without really giving any backup to prove why their claim is true in the first place. Now, there are these really fun things that I would love to discuss with you called logical fallacies, but I'll just touch on a few of them briefly. So, a logical fallacy is when something is stated and you just feel like it's missing something. Something is not quite right about it. The real reason that you feel that way is normally because it's logically flawed. There's a problem with it, and we actually have terms to describe what's wrong and with some of the most common fallacies out there. So for example, if I said, yesterday it was sunny and I bought gas for $3.50 a gallon. Today it was rainy and the gas price was $3.55. Therefore, the gas price increases when it's rainy. You would hopefully not be convinced by that statement. So what's happening there is a logical fallacy called the post hoc fallacy. It states that just because A happened and then B happened doesn't necessarily mean that A caused B. There's normally a different cause to blame. Or for example, when ice cream sales are up, there are more shark attacks. Therefore, ice cream causes shark attacks. Wrong. If you look a little deeper and ask a few questions, and you realize that ice cream sales are most prominent in the summertime. The summertime is also when most people go swimming. Therefore, since more people are swimming, it's only natural that more shark attacks would occur. So in business, this happens all the time. I posted a picture of my dog on Instagram, and then today I sold a pair of earrings. Therefore, posting pictures of dogs on Instagram equals selling earrings. Wrong. We have to trace back why that person came into the store and ask them why they decided on earrings in the first place. What you'll find is that they don't have an Instagram account and they're allergic to dogs, but it's 3 days away from Mother's Day and they bought the earrings as they were passing through town. Or how about I've tried Instagram ads and I didn't make money off of them, therefore social media doesn't work. That's just a played out version of this logical fallacy. Just because A happened and then B happened doesn't mean that A is the reason for B. Maybe the problem isn't that social media doesn't work, which is clearly incorrect because people are making billions off of it every single day, but rather that you did it all wrong. It's coming to a conclusion too soon based off of a very small amount of evidence. That's post hoc. Or how about this one? Robbie is a millennial. Clearly he's not going to know anything about marketing in the jewelry industry. Hopefully you see the problem here. This is a fallacy called ad hominem. An ad hominem is an insult used in place of an argument to support a conclusion. So we see these all the time in politics, and normally we label this as mudslinging or slandering. Calling Biden old or calling Trump a billionaire in a way that's derogatory in place of an argument about their fitness for presidency is ad hominem. Just because a person is such and such doesn't necessarily mean that supports your argument in any way. And clearly, just because I'm a millennial doesn't necessarily mean that I don't know anything about marketing in the jewelry industry. There are other factors to consider for that argument. That's ad hominem. Now we're going to do just a few more here to whet your appetite for critical thinking. So, what if I were to say, a jeweler I look up to says that the best camera for taking jewelry pictures is his iPhone 4, and since he said it, that must be right. Now, this is one of the ones that I actually see most often. This is called an appeal to authority fallacy. And I'm able to see this clearly because I actually do know about cameras. But an appeal to fallacy says that because this person is an authority figure in Area 1, and they say something about Area 2, I can trust them about that. You know, what if Shaquille O'Neal got on TV and told you that the best jeweler for upgrading your engagement ring diamond is Zales? Well, guess what? A lot of people would fall for that. And I love Shaq, who doesn't? But what does he know about upgrading engagement ring diamonds? He seems to be in like every arena right now, and marketers love exploiting this fallacy. I even saw him at Staples representing a printer company. Like what's this Shaquille O'Neal know about printers? That's the appeal to authority fallacy. And you have to be careful because just because someone you look up to says something doesn't have any bearing on whether or not that thing is true. That's appeal to authority. Now here's the last one that we're going to get into. Well, a lot of jewelers I know have joined this jewelers organization. Therefore, it must be the right thing to do. Wrong. This is called the bandwagon fallacy. This states that just because everyone else is doing it, it must be right. When I was a kid, I looked up to someone named Joey. I remember I was asked, oh yeah, if Joey jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? They were pushing against this bandwagon fallacy, saying jumping off a bridge is dangerous. You can't blindly follow others into death and destruction just because that's where they're going to. Here's another example. Almost everyone that I know says that they bought this special light box for their jewelry pictures. Therefore, it must be the right thing to do. Wrong. Just because others are doing it doesn't mean it's the right thing for you. In fact, it probably wasn't the right thing for them either. That's the bandwagon fallacy. Now, there are countless other fallacies out there, and I highly encourage you to read that short story, Love is a Fallacy, because it will help you understand critical thinking in a fun way. But the reason we're getting into critical thinking and logical fallacies isn't just so you can be a big-headed, argumentative person. It's the wrong way to think about it. Remember when we talked about a jeweler's biggest problem being the jeweler, him or herself? The biggest obstacle to your own growth is you. And we're all in denial about where we really are, and if we want to improve our lives, we need to look at our true selves and be willing to face our downside head on and take control of our lives so we can steer them in the direction of our goals and dreams. Well, if you can't think with a clear and level head, you will constantly be pulled to the right and to the left, being distracted by so much stupid, useless stuff. You'll go down the road a little bit, but then something shiny will come along, and because you haven't thought critically about it, you'll say, hey, this looks fun. Maybe I'll try this. Maybe I'll buy this program. Maybe I'll download this app. Maybe I'll sell this other person's jewelry. Maybe I'll join this other company. Maybe I'll accept this job. Maybe I'll use that company's Facebook post templates. Maybe I'll sacrifice a little more of my time. Maybe the life I want isn't real. Maybe I'm not meant to be a successful person. Maybe my friends and family were right. Or at some point, you're going to hit a bump in the road and you'll think, oh man, this business stuff is hard. I don't know if I like this so much. And you'll trick yourself into believing that you can just slack off, or you'll get in denial about where you really are. And because you're not thinking clearly and critically, you'll live in a fantasy world where you never actually hit your dreams or your goals, and you constantly blame outside circumstances. When you learn to think critically, it literally rewires the way you think and make decisions. It's impossible to rationalize away your own laziness when you can see clearly that there's no logical reason for what you're doing. It forces you to go head to head with reality and charge forward into your future with deadly accuracy. It also is like a shield that blocks away all the crap and nonsense that's floating around out there. Other people will offer you opportunities and you'll be enticed by them. But because you know how to think critically about them, you'll say easily, yes, this will serve my ultimate purpose. Or, no, this isn't going to serve my ultimate purpose. And you can confidently move on without the fear that you've made a mistake. It's way too easy to give up. And it's way too easy to give in to all the shiny things that will come your way. Think clearly, be level-headed, move forward consistently, put in the work, and don't pay attention to distractions. This is why I don't listen to the news anymore. When I was first told by some of my mentors, like, hey, don't listen to the news, I thought, what? But you have to stay informed. You have to know what's happening. That's irresponsible. There are people who are suffering. It's rude to not watch the news. But then it was explained to me that the news works like any other business. And when you get into the stories, you'll notice that there are so many logical fallacies and such a lack of critical thinking that it will literally make your head spin. Most of what you read or watch in the news isn't actionable. Yes, I heard about refugees and I changed my life and I went over to serve refugees, but that doesn't mean I can take action on every single thing that comes across the news. It's not all my burden to bear, nor would it be healthy or helpful to even try and be a part of everyone else's plan for my life. Remember, if you don't have a plan for your life, then someone else will. The news and social media are filled with people trying to recruit you for their plans. And if you don't already have one for your own life, then you will feel the pull to join into their plan. It's a distraction. You have permission to shut out the noise. I even use something on Facebook called Kill Newsfeed so that my newsfeed can't pop up on Facebook, because it's an app that's literally engineered to suck you in and distract you. I work behind the scenes in social media. I know how it works. And there have even been studies done about people who watch the news and are on social media, and there is a definite correlation between those who watch the news and are on social media and those who are depressed, those who are constantly angry, and those who are unsatisfied with their lives. Don't let it distract you from becoming a bigger person than you are. With the ability to think critically, you can make decisions clearly. You can move forward with your purpose, with your life, and you can serve those that are actually around you. Remember, everything that we're doing is to make you into a bigger person by changing the way that you're thinking. The bigger of a person that you are, the more productive you are, which means the more value you can produce to help others. And if you help others solve their problems, they will gladly solve your money problems. Become clear-minded. Think for yourself and do whatever it takes to protect your mind, because it governs everything about you. Now, if we're going to become all things to all men, and we want to be able to serve properly, then we do so by thinking critically about situations and making good decisions. But it helps to also recognize that while others have a worldview, so do we. Each of us was born into a particular family situation, particular demographic, a particular culture, and we all have stories that we've brought into about who we are, what our identity is, and how we fit into the world and all that stuff. We need to face who our current static self is and understand that it can be changed. You know, one of the most liberating things is becoming self-aware. Like when you're able to see yourself from the outside as a character who does things that you find helpful or unhelpful, you're able to transcend yourself and accomplish what you want. But we can't do that. We can't truly see ourselves without facing our dark side or our current situation. And don't worry, who you currently are is not clearly all bad. There's a lot of great stuff about you, but the more aware of it we are, the more we can know what we need to work on. So there's this thing called the Johari window that I was first exposed to as a counselor working at a summer camp. The goal of the camp director was to help us become self-aware so that we could recognize that each person is truly different and starts from a different place. Some of us grew up in bad households, and that plays a role in how we see ourselves. Some of us lost a parent at a young age, like me, and because of that, I start at a different place than a lot of others do. But once we become self-aware, we can then change who we are into the person we want to become. The Johari window is a really simple 4-square diagram, and it's broken into 4 quadrants. So each of these quadrants represents knowledge about you. All the way on the top left is things you know about yourself and others know about you. So this is open knowledge. This is stuff that we're aware of, such as you're more introverted or extroverted. This is stuff that we can work with. This is easy stuff. Now below that is a square for stuff that's known to you but unknown to others. So these are the secrets that you keep to yourself or that you just don't feel are necessary to tell others about. This could be certain likes or dislikes, or the way that you feel about yourself or a certain person. This is stuff that you can work on, but because you can't get feedback from others, you're limited on what progress can be made. And then at the top right is stuff that others know about you that you don't know about yourself. And this stuff is freaky. Like when I went through this, I learned that people's first impressions of me were that I was really arrogant. Man, when I learned that, I was like, shoot, I had no idea. And obviously, I didn't want to be known or seen as arrogant, so I tried to change things. But if I hadn't known that, I wouldn't have had anything to work with. And then below that, in the bottom right, is stuff about you that isn't known to you and also isn't known to others. Now, this is stuff that no one knows. And normally it's new experiences that bring out this knowledge. None of us, for example, knows how we're going to react in a fight or fight situation, a fight or flight situation, until it happens to us. None of us knows how we'll handle public speaking until we try doing it. None of us knows how we'll handle rejection until it happens. The goal with looking at ourselves this way is to discover more about ourselves that we don't know. And the first place to start is the obvious one. Things that others know about us that we don't know about ourselves. So this is going to be a stretching exercise, and it's meant to be. I had to do this as well multiple times, and each time it brings out fear in me. Don't worry about it. Just get it done. You can't grow, you can't become a bigger person unless you're aware of who you truly are. And if you stay in denial about who you really are, then you'll never be able to grow. We want clarity. And don't worry about what you see. Remember, everything can be changed. We just need to know what we're working with. So I've had to do this multiple times. What I want you to do is choose 5 people that know you very well from different walks of life. One can be from a club that you're in, one can be a friend, one can be a family member, whoever you choose, but you want them to not all have seen you in the same place. So try and get them from different arenas of your life. Now, I want you to just reach out to each person and I want you to say, hey, I'm going through this training and we have to do a self-awareness exercise for it to be completed. I'd really appreciate it if you could help me out. When you get the chance, could you just take 2 minutes and answer these 2 questions for me? What are 3 roles you would definitely choose me for? And what are 3 roles you would definitely not choose me for? Once you get those responses, you'll likely start to see a pattern of how people see you, and it will give you insight into the kind of person you are in both a positive light and in a way that will allow you to see what areas need improvement. So now that you've done that, I want you to take a personality test if you haven't before. Remember, this is your current self, but this isn't going to be you forever. People change, and we're going to help people change, and we're going to help you to become the kind of person that deserves success. But when you get an accurate view of your worldview, you have something to start with. So the first test is called a Myers-Briggs test. Now, this is one of the most popular tests that has to do with personalities, and it's very simple. It's very easy to take. Just go, take 20 minutes, get your answers, and come back here. You can find it anywhere online. Just type in Myers-Briggs test. And the second one, which I've actually found more helpful, is called the Enneagram. Now, this is a little more time consuming, but again, it will help you get a good idea of the things that you tend towards and the things that you're not so well known for. I find that the Enneagram normally gives more accurate results to each person and helps us understand each person's actions much, much better. When it comes to personality tests, you could literally spend years researching everything that's been written, but don't. Remember, you can change, and in order to be successful, you will need to change into a person who deserves success. That means that obsessing over a personality test and whatever your results are is pointless, because you will not stay that same person. In another video, we're going to get much, much deeper into who you are right now versus who you're becoming. But I just want to get these things in your hands now so that when we get to that video, you'll be more prepared. By getting an accurate assessment of who we are, we have some material to work with and improve. It also helps us to understand others better as we see how different others are from us. We need to be able to think critically and clearly about life so that we aren't living in denial anymore. This is how we become relentless, success-eating machines that achieve their goals in lightning-fast times. Thanks. I'll see you in the next video.